Yes, hello and welcome back to Too Young to Grieve episode 5. This is a space for young people navigating loss and trying to rebuild life after it. So, today I want to talk about how do you ever notice how after you lose someone, people will check in for a few weeks and then it just stops? You get that first wave of sympathy, the flowers, the messages, the phone calls, people dropping dinner around, all that stuff, which we really appreciate, and then kind of just silence. Everyone goes back to normal, but of course you don't. You're still in the thick of it, trying to figure out how to function in a world that doesn't feel the same anymore. And for some reason, you start to feel guilty for not being okay yet, even though everyone else is sort of back to normal and thinks that you're back to normal. And that's what I want to talk about today. And it's the pressure to feel okay or be okay after loss, because it's so real. I experienced it. I know other people have experienced it too. It's subtle, but it's absolutely everywhere in this grief process. People stop asking you how you are because they assume that you've moved on. And that's by no fault of their own, and not blaming absolutely anyone here. Like I said at the start, people check in at the start and this and that. And everybody who's going through grief appreciates that so much. So much. It's just in terms of the whole grief process, you kind of expect to just crack on with life. And for anyone going through grief, especially at a young age, if you're still navigating your life, you're not in a settled relationship, a settled job, it's tough because people expect you to just crack on with work, with interviews. In my case, I was at university, just cracking on with uni, now figuring out life again, trying to figure out work, what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So the whole grief journey and expecting yourself to just feel okay and just be okay after a month or so, it's not going to happen like that. You're expected to go back to work after a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, if your work's nice. Act normal with friends, with partners, your family. Pick your life straight back up where you left off, as if nothing's even changed. But the whole point of this podcast is to explain how things have changed. Everything has changed. Grief doesn't just take someone from your life; it changes your entire relationship with the whole world and everything that comes with life and the world around us. It shifts your priorities, your energy, your perspective on things. The amount of times I've said life's too short since it's happened, because now my perspective on things is that. It's as simple as that. Tomorrow is never promised, so you've just got to crack on as if life is too short, because you know that now. But somehow people expect you to just crack on as normal and smile through it, especially at the beginning stages of your grief journey. Still meant to just get over it, still meant to just be okay after a month. And that's what I want to cover today, because I think it's a topic that's not discussed enough. And I want anyone listening to this who is going through grief and is in that beginning stage of grief to understand that you take as long as you need to be okay, and you don't need to feel any pressure to be okay as soon as possible, or as soon as you have to get back to work or get on with things, or when people don't check in as much, because at the end of the day, everyone else has their own lives, so we can't expect them to be checking in every day as they were for the first month. So to start off with, I want to talk about that first initial phase when those check-ins do stop. It will happen. It's normal. Life carries on for everyone else. Those first few weeks after losing someone, for me, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate, are just a blur. Just such a blur. Like, people are constantly around you, dropping things off, checking in, this and that. Your phone doesn't stop buzzing off with notifications. You get dropped off food, like I said, people offering you lifts, people offering you coffee to take you out to do this and to do that. Everyone's saying, I'm here if you need me, which is absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, it carries you, gives you structure, but then out of nowhere, it just completely fades. And people mean well, of course, with this, but their lives keep moving. As I said, that is completely normal. They go back to their jobs, their routines, their plans, and you're just kind of there, like sitting in that same grief, but with fewer people asking if you're okay. And that's tough. It is difficult. Because that silence is something that just hits differently. And at the start, we don't really know what to do with that, especially if you've never experienced grief before. And it's not, like I say, it's not at all that you expect people to check in forever. No one expects that at all. Everyone's got their own lives, their own problems, their own issues. But it's a little bit like, it's a bit jarring when that noise stops, but the pain doesn't, because you're like, I'm not getting these check-ins, but I'm still feeling that pain. So what's going on here? And you start to feel like you're invisible, like everyone else, got to move forward and crack on, and you're stuck in that same place, trying to act fine because you don't want to be the one who keeps bringing it up. I'm sure a lot of us grieving can relate to this. Like, you don't want to talk about your grief anymore because you feel like you're either just bringing the mood down, or, you've had your time to talk about it. It's done now. I don't want to share that because you're just going to get bored of this story over and over again. And I'm sure a lot of us going through grief can relate to that. Someone might say to you, this is something that I've heard a lot, you seem a bit more like yourself now. And you smile and you agree with it because it's just easier than explaining that, last night you had a terrible night, you cried, you thought about them all night, and you couldn't get to sleep. But you just crack on and you smile and just say, yeah, I do. Because it's easier than explaining the situation that you're currently feeling, because people assume that you are more like yourself and you are okay now because it's been a month or so. And that's the really weird thing about this whole grief journey and this grief process. It's not just lonely because you've lost someone. It's lonely because people kind of don't know what to say to you, don't know how to go about it, don't know how to check in or, speak to you. Some people, I've heard stories that people don't even speak to them in their grief journey because they literally don't know what to say. So they think the easiest thing to do is just to ignore them or not even speak to them. But that's the worst thing that you can do because it makes us feel like we're just weird. And that's kind of when that pressure sort of starts, because once people stop asking you, are you okay? You start feeling like, yeah, I should be, shouldn't I? I should be okay now. No one's asking me, so I should be. I shouldn't be hurting. It's been a month. It's been 2 months. Why am I still thinking about this? But you need to understand that you could think about this for years, and that's okay. You don't have to be done with it in 1-2 months because other people get on with their lives. You should expect people to get on with their lives. And you potentially will still be hurting. You probably will still be hurting. And that's part of this process. You don't need to feel okay in minutes, in hours, in seconds, in days. It can take months, it can take years. So let's talk about why people expect you to be fine. Most people don't mean to rush you. They don't mean to say, you seem better now, or, oh, you must be okay now, it's been a couple of months, this and that. They don't mean that at all. They just don't know how to sit in grief, especially when it's not theirs or they've never been through it. Because grief it's uncomfortable, and it forces people to think about their own life, their own losses, their own fears. People go through things and they might have been through things before you'd experienced your grief, whether it be loss, whether it be relationship. All trauma and all loss is the same. I always say that. There are just different types. You can lose a parent, you can lose a partner, a sibling, or a relationship can end. Something can happen with your job and it could really change the trajectory of your life. So it forces people to think about those losses that they've experienced as well. And it is traumatic at the end of the day. So instead, what they'll do is they'll tell you things like, you're strong. They'd want you to be happy, or you've just got to keep going for them to make them proud. They're in a better place. All these things that people tend to say that are sort of just common things now. And it's not that those things are wrong at all. Not at all. They're just a bit too soon in the grief journey, especially in the first few months, for sure. Even the first 6 months, year, whatever it is. Because in that moment, you're not ready to be strong, potentially. Some people, it takes months, like I say, for them to feel like they're ready to be strong again, ready to crack on. But most of the time, at that stage when people do say it a bit too soon, you're not ready to move on. You're just trying to survive that day again and keep going and keep waking up and doing the little things. You're not ready to be strong and, start just cracking on with life again. But our world doesn't have much space for that kind of pain. That's the whole thing. Work, like I say, gives you a week off, maybe 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, if you're lucky, that is. And then you're expected to be back, focused, productive, normal, crack on, make this business some money. And you do it because what choice do you have? If you're employed, that's the way you get paid. And at the end of the day, this world runs on money, so you need money to live. So you're just going to crack on. You show up, you sit at your desk, you laugh at small talk, people speaking about things, answer emails, all while part of you is somewhere else on a different planet completely. You can't even concentrate on that task. You can't concentrate on someone asking you how your weekend's been. And that's one thing. There's no guide for that part of grief. No one tells you how to go back to a job that now feels meaningless after what's happened. How to go on a date again with someone when you've just experienced loss, so you're scared it might happen again. Or your heart is not even fixed, just still half in the past. You know, a lot of people who go through grief have told me stories that they might go on a date with someone, and the first thing they say is, yeah, I just lost my dad, or I just lost my mum. Because as someone who's grieving, that's the only thing that's on your mind. And it's hard for you to just get back to normality. How do you enjoy birthdays or holidays when someone who you want to be there is not there? And because no one talks about it or starts talking about how you're meant to deal with these things, you start to think that something's wrong with you. And I genuinely thought something was wrong with me when I was going through this grief process early on, thinking about how am I meant to even get in a relationship? How am I meant to crack on with my work and my life and things like that? How am I meant to do that? How am I meant to get back to normal when I don't have the person there who was meant to guide me? And that's what grief does. Because you feel like you're the only person who hasn't moved on. But the truth is, grief doesn't go away. It just changes shape, like I always say. So that's a big thing to think about, and why, people kind of expect you to be fine, but you don't need to be fine straight away. Remember that. And that pressure, how does it feel? How does that pressure feel? You start performing okay. You learn the script, like I say, that mask, that script. You say I'm fine, even when you're not. You post something happy so people think that you're coping. I've been doing that, like, even recently. Been posting things, something happy so that people think you're coping okay. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're deep in that grief, or you've got new grief, and you don't know how to deal with it. So you just post something happy so people don't, question it, or, check in, because you'd rather not burden them with a new thing, And you laugh, you laugh at the right times when you're with people, but you cry when no one's around. And that's something that we need to work on in just general mental health aspects and in grief. Because it's better to speak to people or tell people openly how you're feeling than just laugh and just crack on. Because that's when you can actually process things better. So you probably will wear that invisible mask, not because you want to, but because it's easier than watching people get uncomfortable when you tell the truth about how you're feeling. And that's one of the biggest things that I've taken from grief and from mental health. And then people will say you're doing amazing, and you nod, you smile, yeah. Even though you're just, getting by, running on empty, you go out with friends, laugh for an hour or two while you're with them, and then come home. That drive home, just complete silence, just wondering, thinking, wonder if anyone actually realizes how much effort it took you to just show up. In particular, at that starting point of your grief journey. So if you're going out with friends, you're meeting up with people, and it's taking a lot of your energy, it's fine to take a breather, to take a step back, potentially miss a few dinners or nights out to protect your own peace and your own energy if you need it. Because the hardest part of grief and getting back to feeling okay is that sometimes you start believing your own performance. You convince yourself that, yeah, I should be okay by now. You compare your grief to how others seem to handle theirs. Like, you might scroll online on social media and think, why does everyone else seem so happy? Yet I'm just feeling so stuck in this grief. And you need to understand that that's not weakness. That's just what happens when grief collides with a world that rewards pretending over feeling, which is how this world is. A lot of us will pretend that we're okay, we'll pretend that we're fine, so that we don't have to burden people with those feelings that we are feeling that potentially aren't too good for us. We'd rather keep them boxed up, bottled up, and not share it. And if no one's told you this yet, you don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to not be okay. You're allowed to let people see the cracks. You're allowed to let people see that sometimes you're not always going to be okay. I know in this world, and especially for men, it's you've always got to be strong. You've got to be this man. Men don't cry, this and that. But, and this applies to anyone going through grief, men, women, anybody. You're allowed. You're allowed to let people see cracks. Remember that. It is okay to not be okay. But I think being okay after grief has been completely misinterpreted, missold. People make it sound like it's a destination, like one day you're just going to wake up and you're all back to normal. It's not going to hurt anymore. You've woken up, the grief's done, you've processed it. Cool, it's time to get back like nothing's happened. But it's not like that. Being okay isn't about being happy 100% of the time. It's about learning how to live with that pain in a way that doesn't control you. It's about being able to laugh again without feeling guilty for laughing. You're allowed to laugh. Yes, someone may have gone, but you're allowed to laugh and they'd want you to laugh. It's crying when you need to, with, again, not feeling weak. Anyone on this planet is allowed to cry. Remember that. It's not weak for crying. I've seen it time and time again. I haven't cried in ages because that's weak. It's not weak. If you're processing emotion properly, that's going to allow you to rebuild stronger as a result of that. And crying is part of that. It's also having those moments of peace, even if they don't last long. Whether it's a walk outside, whether it's a journaling session, whether it's listening to a podcast, just having a little bit of time to yourself, having those moments of peace, meditation, mindfulness, whatever it is, and just having those and letting yourself feel those. Because grief changes you permanently. It does. But not always in bad ways. It gives you perspective. You stop sweating the small things. You start noticing the little things a lot more. Like how someone makes you feel, how someone makes you laugh, how a song hits differently, how when you're outside you smell, you feel the trees, the nature, the sun hitting your face. You realise what actually matters in this world and stop comparing to really what doesn't. I see videos all the time and I scroll past them. I don't want to see them anymore because I know I wouldn't care if I had that car. If I had that lifestyle, it genuinely wouldn't bother me. Because I know that right at that time that I had that car, I would sell that car if it meant that grief would stop and I could have that person back. So why am I going to stress about that car? And that's what grief does. But that takes time. And I didn't feel like that at the start. I thought those things would make me feel better. Going on the trips, going to different places, buying certain things, feeling certain ways, going on this trip, whatever it was. I'd feel like that would make me feel good and make me feel better. But understanding that it probably won't, that takes time. And like I say, you don't go from that broken, that grieving, to just peaceful overnight. That doesn't happen. It's slow. It can be quiet. It can be lonely at times. It can be messy at times. Like I say, you're not going to be okay all the time. It's not just going to be smooth sailing. You get back to normal. But what you need to understand as well is being okay isn't about just leaving them behind. That's not what it's about at all. It's about finding ways that you can carry them forward, carry their legacy forward. A lot of what you do and what you've learned has come from that person potentially. So it's about now carrying on what they've taught you and even developing it even further. In what you do, in how you love, how you become, who you become. That's how you carry them forward. And that's what okay actually looks like. Because it's, like I say, grief isn't an ending. It's not the end. It's the start of a new journey, a start of a new transformation to the new person that you're going to become as a result of it. Now, I've talked a lot about what this episode is about. I've talked about how it occurs, what people do. But I always like to give some practical advice from my experience and from other people who've said similar things on how you can actually cope with these topics that I discuss. So how do you deal with that expectation to be okay again when you're clearly not? And this is what's genuinely helped me a lot, and what I'd suggest and tell a lot of people that are going through it, especially at the start. The first thing that I want you to think about and remember is never apologize for your emotions. You don't owe anyone absolutely anything or a version of you that looks like they have it together. If you break down and cry in front of someone, that's fine. You don't have to apologize for that. If you need to cry, do it. If you need space, take it. If you don't want to go to that dinner or that night out and you need space, just have a day off. I'm sure people will understand. And if they don't, that's fine, because you know you're doing it for something, for yourself, to feel better. You've been through something life-changing. I want you to remember that. So you're not dramatic for feeling it deeply. Remember that. Number 2, tell people how to support you. Like I said at the start of this episode, a lot of people will assume that you'd be okay by now because they haven't been through it. It's the same with how to support you. You expect people to behave in a certain way, say certain things, but they've never been through it, so how would they do that? And sometimes people will go quiet because they just don't know what to say anymore. You know, how many times can you say, I'm here for you, or do you want to go for a coffee, and you potentially don't go? So you can literally say to people, look, I know you've never been through it, so I don't need your advice. You know, you telling me that it will get better soon, this and that. I don't need that. All I need is just for you to be there when I do need it. I just need you to listen when I do need it, and that's all I ask of you. Anything else, it's not important to me right now. I just need you to listen when I need it. And that's all you can say. That one sentence takes the pressure off both of you, because they don't think they need to do anything extra or say anything that might even annoy you, but they've also said absolutely everything that they need to say to know, for you to know that they're there for you, and for them to know that too. The third point that I'll say is keep the little things, the little rituals, the little routines that ground you and guide you. Like I say, grief can take away that safety net. I said it in the last episode. It can make things feel unpredictable, routines, people. It can change absolutely everything. So create those small routines that give you that sense of stability. You know, if it's waking up and going for a morning walk, if it's journaling for 5 minutes a day, going to the gym, cooking. I started cooking so much at the beginning of my journey, even on social media. That's where a lot of the recipes came from. I just started cooking just because it was something that was so therapeutic and gave me peace of mind, and it gave me a ritual. You know, I'd wake up, I'd cook, I'd do a recipe, record it, bosh. Anything that reminds you you're still here and still moving forward, do that. Keep that in your daily routine. The fourth thing that I want to touch upon is, I've said it before, but find your safe people, your close circle. As you grow up and as you get older, your circle does get smaller. And that's just because you found the people who were there for you when you needed it most. So find those people. In grief, you need those people around you. You don't need a massive circle, even if it's just 1 or 2 people who you know you can talk to about it any time of day, and they won't get fed up of listening to it. And that's what this is all about. That's what this podcast is about. That's what this community that I'm building is about. Because I want to create a space where people do get it. And you have those people. If you don't have people around you right now that you can't turn to, with this Too Young to Grieve community, you will. You'll have people around you who do get it, who are going through it, who've been through it, who can help you, can give you advice like I'm giving now. You know, going on run clubs potentially, hikes, online community chats, all these things, just ways to connect with others who know what it feels like. And if you don't have those people around you right now, I promise you that will come with this community. But if you do, find those people and confide in them when you need to. And the fifth and final point that I'm going to touch upon here is, please let go of timelines. Grief has no timeline. There's no timeline for you to be okay. There's no timeline for it to be over. It has no timelines. And that's all I can say to you. Some days you're going to feel fine. Other days you're going to randomly crash. You're going to cry. You're going to think about it. And you're going to think, where did that even come from? But that's how grief works. It's unpredictable. And that is okay. You're not failing. You're not weird for still missing them. Remember that. That's just the love and the relationship you had with that person doing what love and relationships do. They make you feel things. They make you feel certain types of way. So don't feel weird for feeling like that for months, for years to come, however long it takes. So to summarize today's episode, I think the pressure to be okay is one of the hardest parts of grief, because it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong for simply just being human. There's even stages that people have researched and said that happen in grief. Now, I'm not saying you're going to go through all of them. Some people go through some of them and don't go through others. But there's literally stages. So it's something that is literally human. You feel it in your body, in your mind, in everything. So listen, you're not behind. If you're 2 years, 3 years, 4 years into this process and you're still feeling things, you're not behind. You're not weak. And you're just learning how to live again in a world that looks completely different. So remember that. You don't owe anybody a polished, okay version of your pain. You don't owe that at all. You don't have to be over it. All you have to do is just keep showing up every single day. Just try and be 1% better every day. That's all you can do. And if no one said this to you yet, I'm proud of you for doing that. For showing up every single day. For surviving yesterday and for turning up again today. You made it through another 24 hours and you should be proud of that. So keep going. You're getting up. You're trying. You're existing through something that changed absolutely everything. So well done. I'm proud of you. Keep going. And yeah, that was a tough episode, but I hope that it helped a lot of you. So if this episode did resonate with you, please share it with someone else who might need it. Share it on your stories and feel free to tag me. Follow the podcast, follow the pages on Instagram. Follow at Too Young to Grieve, at Luke Alfano 11. Those are my Instagram handles. And join the community that we're building, because this is going to be something special. And that's all I'm going to say, is I want people who listen to this, who interact with myself or the Too Young to Grieve community, to feel like they've got people around them, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood. Because you don't have to pretend you're okay anymore. You just have to keep going, one day at a time. So that's it. You've been listening to Too Young to Grieve, episode 5. And like I say, this is a community for young people learning to rebuild after loss. So I will see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m.